Salutations, everybody! It is Matty here today with my review.
What do you think you're doing?
Okay, well, who are you? What are you doing here?
You can't review this game. No, you hate this game.
What do you mean What do you mean I can't review?
Get out of the chair.
Wait, okay, whoa.
I'm reviewing the game. Get out. Come on. I got this.
Okay. You can take it. All right, it's good to have a real reviewer in the house. Let's get this thing off. It's hot in there, and talk about Marvel Avengers. Salutations, everybody. It is a Mr. Plays here, and we are reviewing Square Enix's Marvel Avengers. We've covered this game fairly extensively on the channel. We did beta impressions. Those did really well. All of our news updates leading up until launch have also done well. So I feel like there's a decent amount of interest for this game here on the channel. And as promised in my beta impressions video, where I knew it was fairly negative, I said I'm still going to buy the game at launch with my own money. No review code was provided. And I'm going to give you guys my honest upfront thoughts, because this is a game I genuinely want to like. So I've completed the story. I've gone through a decent amount of the end game. I keep hopping back into the game, and I'm pleased to report there are a lot of things I'm really positive about when it comes to this game. But underneath that is a lot of criticism and a lot of things that desperately need improvement and a pretty unacceptable standard set for AAA bugginess. So we have a lot to talk about, but let's get into what is, in my opinion, the best part of this game, the story. This one caught me off guard, so let's go. Avengers' story begins, as I'm sure you've already seen in a billion marketing campaigns, with A-Day. It leaves San Francisco in quarantine, and people start to become inhuman due to an explosion that happens. AIM steps in and claims they're going to be bringing a cure to the inhuman disease, as they term it. However, they have ulterior motives, as we'd expect. I thought putting AIM in the spotlight along with MODOK was a really interesting change, as this game is full of comic nods through the tons of audio logs, codex entries, and collectibles scattered about the game. We've seen them a little bit in older Ultimate Alliance games, but quite frankly, having them be the actual star villain group of a game really made me appreciate them more. The story itself does a really good job of portraying the emotional weight the Avengers are actually carrying. At first I thought, oh, this is going to be really cliche, man. I'm just not ready for this, but it actually turns out I cared by the end of the game. A lot of that is thanks to the protagonist, the main protagonist of this game, because you can play as all the Avengers, as I'm sure you're aware, Kamala Khan. She is a sweetheart. She's the glue. She's the soul of this story. She makes it all work. Quite frankly, a lot of the acting in this game, from like Thor to Iron Man, these are very talented actors behind these characters, but the performances are usually fairly lifeless. But it's Kamala Khan just at the heart of this whole thing that's making it work. If her performance isn't as good as it is, and if she isn't as well written as she is, this doesn't work at all, and this game's infinitely worse. However, I think the story was worthwhile. I enjoyed my time. It took about 10 hours to go through, a lot shorter than I would have expected, and we'll get into how that actually impacts the end game content. But still, story here was very solid. I enjoyed it, and I did not expect that at all. I do think some of the story themes are a bit familiar. What you see after A-Day is people are against anything superpower related, because Inhumans are considered freaks. The Avengers were the cause of that, so anything superpower related scares them. And you could think of things like, of course, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 story, or Captain America Civil War, where you're disbanding this big superhero group. They've sort of faded out of the world. You start to question whether or not there is a purpose for these superheroes in the world. Do we need them? Do they bring more chaos because they exist? This game asks that very question. I don't think it approaches it in a wholly unique fashion, but like I said, between AIM and Kamala Khan, I think the story works out pretty well, and I found it interesting for most of the ride. With that said, I can't help but get the inkling that Avengers was supposed to be a totally different game. The first 3 to 4 hours are fairly linear. They're all story focused, and it's very solid. However, all of a sudden, there's a drastic shift to loot, to open-endedness, to tackling the game mission by mission. It starts to feel formulaic, and I don't know if it's because they were making this game here, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, and said, hey, this has a way bigger roster. This allows us to go to a lot more areas than a AAA game is currently doing. And so there are going to be way too many similarities. We need to do something and change it fast. And so they went with this live service route. But it definitely feels like a game that was going to be totally different, like just a straight up Avengers story. Now, as you're exploring these levels, one of my biggest qualms with the beta is still present here in the full game. It's incredibly linear. There's narrow environments. You're just going straight. You're holding that left stick forward. You're not going to really diverge your path. Even when they do open up the levels a little bit and they throw little side objectives in there, that's when the mission design is at its actual best, because sometimes you'll go and fight an elite unit from AIM, or sometimes you'll complete a bounty or save some Inhumans. But what happens is, as you run these missions over and over, you're going to start to see the same environments constantly. You're going to start to see the same missions for sure almost immediately. Even in some of the main story missions leading up to the finale of the game, they don't drastically alter the design of things. It's like capture 3 of this, hack this, sit on this icon here and knock enemies off of it, go to this aim base or that aim base. It can get very repetitive, but that makes for a great game if you're sitting in Discord with the homies and you're just chatting it up and you're not really paying attention to the game. This game works, man. Works great. But if you're really focused in on it and monotony is the bane of your existence, then Avengers will struggle, because the loot system feels slapped on. It doesn't feel like it was an integral part of the design of the game. So what happens is, as you acquire loot in this game, your power is going to raise, and power enables you to take on higher level missions, more difficult missions, and also unlock perks via parts of your equipment. So as you invest materials in that equipment, you'll get various different boosts and bonuses for your character. Combine that with a skill system that's fairly expansive, where you can focus on light attacks, heavy attacks, support skills, attacking skills, and ultimate ability, and shaping your character. Everyone's skill tree will eventually be the same if you put enough time into the game. However, you can't just complete it like that. You have to sink time into it. Part of this progression system is also the challenge cards. Now, I was very vocal, and a lot of people told me I overreacted, that these were going to be grindy. And a lot of people defended them, saying, Matty, you can play for them. They're not going to try to steal your money. So how did the challenge cards end up? Let's take a look. So I did some math. In total, for each challenge card, you'll need 200 points. Every daily mission gives you 3 challenge card points, so you can get 6 a day because you only have 2 dailies available. They also give you 2 weeklies that award you 11 points. So that totals to 22 weekly points and 42 daily points each week, leading to 64 points a week per character. After that, you're not going to earn any more challenge card points. That means to fully round out each of these characters and complete their challenge cards, you're going to need at least 3 or so weeks. Now, the design here is obviously that once I say max out Ms. Marvel's week worth of challenge points, I'm going to move on to Captain America. And so there is that sense of progression and playability there. The game does give you credits, and you could spend those free credits on upgrading your challenge cards. However, since that's a valuable in-game currency, I can see why that would be unappealing. This would be a system that works, but this is exactly what I was afraid of. It's very grindy. I think they need to up the rewards. I know they have to make money. I know they're a business, but I think they need to up the amount of dailies you have to maybe 3 to 5. I think they need to up the point count in general to make it where it's rewarding to play. Because what's happening is that they're expecting me, if I play literally 7 days a week, to go into these missions in this game world, which are fairly repetitive, and grind out these challenge cards. And so what it leads to is the thought process for me that right now we have a lot of systems in place where I was like, okay, some of this works, some of this doesn't. It needs to be fine-tuned. It needs a lot of patches. We'll talk about bugs in just a bit, but it needs a lot of work as a system. It's not like Anthem where it's so deeply baked in that it can't be worked around. That's the good news here. So in about a year, Marvel Avengers can be an amazing game because there is potential here. But right now, with the mission variety, with the environmental variety, both of those being practically non-existent, and then a senseless grind right inside of all of that, it makes it really tough to just keep going and keep going, especially when the loot part of the game doesn't cosmetically alter your character. So that only changes through the skins in the game that you can either buy or roll through the fabrication machine to randomly unlock. So yeah, like I enjoyed parts of it, but I didn't. And one thing that really took away from it were the bugs. There were a lot of them. I mean, a lot of them. Oh, check them out.
agreeable grunt.
Every moment I live is agony.
Now, some people have said that Marvel Avengers is as bad as Fallout 76, and I'm starting to think people forget how bad Fallout 76 is. The reality is that, at least from my experience with about 20 hours with this game so far, Avengers works. It just has sometimes like mission bugs where you'll have to reload a checkpoint, so you gotta go through another loading screen. It'll be like those visual bugs I showed earlier. Sometimes the camera will mess up. It's like these little snags that don't outright stop your game. Sometimes my game will crash though. I will mention that. I had about 2 crashes throughout my 20 hours. There are FPS dips. The frame rate can get pretty terrible. I'm just playing on a base PS4, so combined with waiting for next gen, waiting for patches, waiting for more content to be added, there is a future here. That's what I'm pleased to report. I feel like the content has potential if they can keep adding to it and adding to it consistently and listening to their community. There could be something here. Now, a lot of people have honed in on the combat being underrated. I've seen some very impressive combo videos on Twitter, and I gotta say, guys, that none of this is gonna happen in any of the missions that you can do, because you're getting staggered constantly. And I don't know if it's just me with this type of pet peeve, but there is no single reason why in like these crazy anime fighters, in superhero games, that I should be getting staggered for every single thing that touches me. Nothing makes me feel less powerful, less like a hero than being staggered every time I get touched. Now, I'm not talking about if I get hit by a giant robot, I should get knocked on my butt. I'm talking about, for example, if you get shot by a little laser beam, boom, you drop out of the air, you're done. And it's just, oh God, it's so frustrating, dude. I also felt like there was a lacking in supervillain boss fights. There's really only technically 3. Outside of that, you're going to be fighting a lot of robots, so the enemy variety really is lacking as well. There's tons of quick time events, which makes this feel like a 360/PS3 game, especially in the final fight. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But let's move on into the end game. This is where I really started to develop my gripes with the zone count and how repetitive things got. However, this is also where I realized this is a fun game to shut off your brain, do some combos, beat up some bad guys, get some loot, and just play as Iron Man or Captain America or Ms. Marvel. And if you can just have fun with that, the game is all right, but I would definitely suggest just holding on to your money until it at least functions better, until they add a couple of bits of more content, because then I think I can understand where people are coming from. There is a game here with potential, and I just wish these live service games would come out and just work and be great at launch, but it seems like that's just impossible, so you have to wait, but then you can get it for cheaper. I did note during my endgame grind that the legendary loot was fairly generous. I had no issue finding any for my character, which was great. I fully decked out Kamala Khan in a matter of a couple of missions, and so that was enjoyable, being able to scale the power ladder and then take on higher power missions. But at the same time, as I took on those higher power missions, I started to get frustrated because the matchmaking waits were super long, and sometimes I couldn't find anybody. Now, I know this game's selling well. There's no doubt about it. It's got Marvel stamped on the cover, so I know it's selling just fine. But I gotta say, man, a lot of bugs. Not 76 level, but a lot of bugs. So all I'm gonna say is right now, if you desperately need a Marvel fix, you buy this game. If you own a Switch, you buy this game, okay? This is a great beat 'em up with a huge roster, tons of DLC. It's a solid game. It's a little messy. I still believe it was supposed to be a free-to-play game because there's so many levels of currency, but I digress. solid game right here. You know, when it comes to Marvel's Avengers, though, that's something you got to wait for. Wait, watch, see the patches, see the content updates. There is potential here, but you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait. So I would say pocket your cash for now, spend it elsewhere, but it's not one of those games that's so bad or even so average that I say completely shut it down, completely ignore it, because like I said, there is a possibility here this game does turn around, but I don't know. With the bugs and how quickly it was rushed out, I feel like there's a chance it just doesn't turn around. So if you just turn and walk away and say, I'm not dealing with this and I don't want to pay attention to this game, I don't blame you. And I get it. But I'm just saying, for those of you who really like Marvel, you're like me. I mean, look what I'm wearing, for God's sakes. I get it. You want to be invested in this game. You want to like it. I think this game would be getting absolutely torched if it didn't have the Marvel license. But because it does, there's a degree of forgiveness amongst many people. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I leave it in your hands. Let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Big thank you to all of the patrons who continue to slay it with that support. I appreciate each and every single one of you, and I'll talk with you guys soon. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.